hey, what's up? Hmm? Oh, I see. You saw me reading and you got curious again, huh? Would you like to know what I was reading about this time? Yes? Alright, come on. I'll tell you a bit about what I was reading about. So, this time I was reading up on another classic, Norse mythology, mainly looking into Thor and Loki's relationship. So, if you've been paying attention to our past talks, you might have noticed that I've been looking into various opposing forces. Usually one good and one quote unquote evil, or if not good and evil, then one side that wants to do something, and the other being, well, there to oppose it, or even if it's just two literal opposites. Anyway, I'm sure you're a bit familiar with them since Norse gods are pretty popular in modern media, but I'll tell you more about them anyway, since you're so interested. Let's start with Thor. So, he's the Norse god of, thunder and lightning and storms and the like. I'm sure you know. He's a literal thunder god. But he's also the god of oak trees, strength, fertility, while also being the protector of mankind, like that Amon Amarth song says. Anyway, he's one of the more popular deities in his pantheon. Even back in the day, commoners knew of him, and so did many, many warriors. Now, Thor is the son of Odin, or as he's known, Volden, the Allfather, and his mother, Earth, which is the personification of Earth. And you can even hear it in her name, which in English means Earth. And I mean, that's what it sounds like too. Anyway, this is the connection he has to the mortal world as a god himself. There's quite a few different depictions of him, but his main traits, at least that most people agree upon, are how brawny he is, and that he has red hair and a beard. In battle, he is very fierce, but also very straightforward and loyal. Sometimes he's depicted as being very simple-minded. So he basically just knows how to do battle, and he's kind to those that he likes. Unlike some other gods and other pantheons, which resolve their problems with tactics or wit, as we've heard about before, he usually prefers to resolve things with his hammer, Mjolnir. And, I mean, it's not that Thor is like an idiot or something, but like, why talk things out when you can literally just smash your opponent to bits in some cases? Anyway, speaking of Mjolnir, it's probably his most iconic weapon. It's a hammer, and anytime he throws it, it always comes back to him. But it's not just a weapon of war, as it's also used in wedding ceremonies or even when, during births. By this I mean symbolically, as in they have the symbol of Thor's hammer somewhere in the vicinity, either, in the chapel, or, well, wherever the marriage is taking place, or even where the baby's being delivered. This doesn't mean that, Thor himself is delivering the baby for you. There is also Mainjörð, which is a belt that he wears, which doubles his strength. And we also have Járngrip, which is literally iron grabber. And those are his gloves that he wears to wield Mjolnir properly. He also has a chariot that is pulled by two goats of all things. His two goats being Tangrisnir and Tangjurst. It might sound a bit funny that he has goats pulling his chariot, unlike other gods who might have, horses. But in Norse mythology, it's not too uncommon. I mean, there's also the goddess Freya, who has her chariot pulled by cats, of all things. Anyway, so Thor is mainly the chief protector of Asgard, which is where the gods live, and Midgard, where humans live. He is constantly fighting Jotnar, or giants, who are chaotic and they destroy everything. Despite being a god, however, he does like to travel through the realms like a wandering warrior who protects the weak and slays monsters for fun. He is, however, fated to die in Ragnarok, which is the Nordic apocalypse, the end of the world. He's supposed to fight and kill Jormungand, the world serpent. Basically, the Norse believed in the ocean there was this huge snake that wrapped around the world, which is kind of terrifying. But it dies, and Thor then dies to its venom after he kills it. Loki, on the other hand, is much different. His father is Farbauti, a giant, thus making Loki a giant as well. But he lives amongst the gods due to this blood pact that was made with Volten. He is the Norse god of trickery, deception, shapeshifting, mischief, and unlike most gods, Loki doesn't really have a moral compass that he follows. Instead, he just acts on a whim or self-interest. He's very charismatic and manipulative, but also clever and funny. He ends up playing a lot of pranks and changes forms often. In some stories, he's been depicted as having transformed into a fish or a mare and the like. And sometimes he will come to the aid of gods who need saving, but he will also contribute to their downfall in many cases. He's also had a few children, which are all kind of weird. One of those kids is Fenrir, which is this giant wolf that's fated to kill Volten during Ragnarok. And then we have Jormungand, again, the world serpent fated to kill Thor. Then we have Hel, and that's spelled H-E-L. And she is the ruler of the underworld. Their name is probably pronounced more like Hel. But anyway. Oh, and remember how I mentioned that he turned into a mare? A female horse? Well, somehow, Loki gets pregnant. And then he gives birth to Sleipnir, which is an 8-legged horse, whom he then gives to Volten. So he's quite the character, huh? Either way, there's some notable stories involving Loki, one of them being Loki's Wager, where he tricks a dwarf known as Brokkr, and basically, he makes a bet and loses. In the bet, he wagers his head, but when the dwarf comes to collect his debt, which is his head, Loki says he can have his head, but not his neck, which is kind of funny, since, well, Loki has parts that belong both to the head and the neck, and then neither side can really come to an agreement on where the head starts and the neck ends. So Loki got to keep his head at the end of the day, and this story has since been described as a fallacy being an argument with faulty reasoning as the construction of said argument, and it may appear as a valid argument if you're not paying attention. But yeah, if you end up looking more into it, it'll be Loki's wager, and that's the name of the fallacy itself, and it's based on this story, which is pretty interesting. Anyway, he's also responsible for the death of Bath, or as you might know him, Balder, one of the most beloved gods of all, who basically tricked the blind god Hoth into throwing a mistletoe, which was the only thing that could harm him, and that results in his death, which is a bit weird, I know. But anyway, after killing Bath, however, Loki tries to get away. He's captured, and he ends up being bound beneath the earth, while a serpent hangs above him, and it's dripping venom into his face. His wife, Seon, tries to catch the venom in a bowl, but when she empties it, the drops fall, and they cause Loki to scream and squirm in agony. And as he's writhing around, this is what was believed to have caused earthquakes, since Loki is imprisoned literally underneath the earth. Still, during Ragnarok, he escapes his bonds and leads the giants and monsters of this world against the gods. He eventually dies in battle with Heimdall, another important god, and both end up killing each other. In some stories, Thor and Loki do adventure and travel together, but both are two completely different, contrasting entities. Thor, however, is direct and honest and physical, while Loki is clever, manipulative, and verbal or psychological. Thor defends the gods, while Loki destroys them, and Thor is also usually just a straight man in a situation, while Loki's chaos tends to lead to, well, chaotic or ironic endings. They were friends at one point, but, that friendship would be tested often. And with the death of Bath, that friendship ends permanently. I mean, you end up killing a god that everyone likes. It's not going to end well, right? Still, you usually do see a complementary nature to them, where Loki's wit complements Thor's brute strength, while Thor provides the muscle to enable Loki's schemes. And they're definitely quite the pair, huh? To think that so much time has passed and these figures still live on, like, to this day, is pretty incredible. It's a true sign of divinity and immortality. Their flesh and bones might be gone from this world, but their ideas, stories, and visages still exist as if nothing has changed. And this is why I love literature and mythologies. They provide such an insight to a world that's long gone, but they also give us stories to learn from. Maybe in the future, I'll tell you about some of the actual stories from around the world, and maybe you can see some of the parallels found between those stories and maybe some of these Nordic ones. But still, did you enjoy my rambling? Well, I'm glad you still had fun. Norse myth is one of my favorites, so maybe we'll come back to it some more later, okay? Until next time, my little pupil.